What if happiness as we know it is not an innate birthright but a carefully curated illusion, crafted by philosophers, religions, and pop psychology to control, distract, and pacify us? We are sold happiness as the ultimate prize. Get a job, find love, buy comfort, chase dreams. But the history of this promise is darker than the glossy self-help claims. Long before Instagram gurus, ancient thinkers and institutions shaped happiness into tools of conformity, moral leverage, and societal control. When we peel back the veneer, we find that the pursuit of happiness often becomes the greatest prison of choice. Let's begin in classical antiquity. Aristotle described eudaimonia, flourishing, not as pleasure, but as virtuous activity. You attained happiness through duty, moderation, rational behavior. This sounds noble until you see who decides what counts as virtue. City elites and state philosophers. Their version of flourishing served the political order, encouraging citizens to find contentment within limits. If you questioned power or rejected the state's role in your life, you risked being labeled unhappy or depraved. Then came religion. In the Middle Ages, the Christian doctrine reframed happiness not as earthly joy, but eternal salvation. Live humbly, obey the clergy, sacrifice your desires, and you'll be rewarded after death. The happiness offered is always out of reach, designed to tether your hope to a distant promise. Behavioral control was embedded in the spiritual ideal. Suffering becomes virtuous. Questioning becomes sinful. You are conditioned to accept unhappiness in the present in exchange for divine affirmation later. Fast forward to the Enlightenment. Happiness becomes a right. Jefferson called it inalienable. Suddenly, pleasure, comfort, self-expression become moral imperatives. But this shift carried its own subtle coercion. Now happiness was no longer passive acceptance. It was active performance. You had to display fulfillment, productivity, optimism. Failure to be happy became a moral failing. A depressive mind was seen as suspect. Anxiety, once expected, became a pathology. You were subtly told if you're not happy, you're doing life wrong, not suffering under it. In modern times, happiness becomes commodified. The religion of self-improvement uses rulers measured in likes, followers, income, and conformity to wellness culture. Algorithms feed you emotional triggers. You scroll until you feel just well enough to keep scrolling. Product developers call this emotional retention. You're sold gratitude journals, yoga apps, curated diets. You're told that consuming happiness brings happiness. Meanwhile, attention is siphoned, autonomy is eroded, and you chase a dopamine high that becomes more elusive each time. This doesn't make happiness inherently deceptive, but it warns us to question the map, not the territory. True contentment still exists, but not in the polished package sold widely. To reclaim happiness, we must deconstruct the mechanisms that twist it. First, question the narrative. When you feel shame or pressure to be happy, ask who benefits. Is it the well-being industry? Is it a brand selling lifestyle mastery? Is it your social media tribe reinforcing conformity? Notice when happiness becomes a performance, when you smile for others' judgments instead of feeling it within. Second, recalibrate your relationships with desire. Ancient philosophers like Stoics taught that freeing yourself from desire doesn't crush joy, it expands it. If happiness depends on external conditions, you are always vulnerable. Instead, cultivate inner stability. Desire fewer things. Train your reactions to loss so that you're undone less by circumstance. Third, practice uncurated presence. Turn off the guided meditation app. Sit alone, without music or screen, and meet whatever arises: boredom, irritation, longing. Observe it like a stranger, and in that observation, discover the simple clarity of existence. This practice reveals that transient discomfort is not misery. It's just transient. Fourth, accept paradox. The cynics believed the world was absurd, and that accepting absurdity lifted you. Joy, suffering, contradiction mix in unpredictable ways. You don't need to resolve them. Accept complexity. When both happiness and despair are valid, life ceases to become a constant pursuit and begins to feel more like a wild tapestry you're allowed to walk in. Fifth, orient toward meaning rather than sensation. Viktor Frankl survived concentration camps by finding purpose. Purpose doesn't always feel pleasant, but it gives structure to chaos. When happiness is tethered to meaning, you survive betrayal, failure, pain. You awaken to a deeper satisfaction that your life matters more than your comfort. Sixth, cultivate gratitude that isn't curated. In gratitude journals, you write what you're supposed to. Real gratitude comes unbidden. It surfaces when you least expect it, unfiltered. So practice slowing. Sit in silence. Notice a simple act of kindness, a small detail of beauty. No need to post about it, just feel it. Let it deepen your contact with life. Finally, test your happiness in crisis. When something bad happens, a betrayal, loss, humiliation, activate gratitude and meaning immediately. Don't wait for recovery. That's stoic premeditation in spirit. You feel the pain, but you refuse to let it erase what still stands. Find the calm that arises when you refuse to let catastrophe define your narrative. Reclaiming joy is not rejection of discomfort. It's refusal to let discomfort define your life. It's the decision to live with intentional vulnerability. Restaurants of happiness that serve sanitized experiences tempt you with zero risk. But life's richness is in the wounds, the adversity that teaches, the broken relationships that demand growth, the absences that reveal presence. If these ideas shake something loose, remember, happiness is not a straight path or a ledger of achievements. It's a relationship with your own fragility, your desire, your power to choose. Break free from the engineered versions. Choose clarity. Choose depth. Choose autonomy. If this perspective enlightens or unsettles you, subscribe and turn on notifications. Share it with someone who still believes happiness is a status symbol. And in the comments, ask yourself, have you ever paused to ask why you feel you must be happy, and who taught you that? When you start asking, the real history of happiness unravels.